Welcome to PodTrendCast with Stella and Mark, where the world's trends take center stage.
Have you ever just, found yourself thinking about the truly impossible? Like not just a tough puzzle, but a person or maybe even a whole ship just blinking out of existence.
Oh, absolutely. It's deeply unsettling, isn't it? It kind of hits at our basic need for order, for logic.
Yeah, the idea that someone can just vanish, it leaves this huge question mark.
A void, really, filled with speculation, not answers. We expect things to follow a certain path, especially with people's lives.
And that feeling, that unsettling mystery, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at some of the most bizarre, truly baffling, unsolved disappearances from the sources we've gathered.
Think of this as your guide, maybe a shortcut, to understanding why these cases just stick with us, why they continue to fascinate and, honestly, sometimes haunt us.
We'll be covering a range of cases, some with wild twists, others just frustrating dead ends, and yeah, a definite touch of the eerie.
These aren't just statistics or dates, they're real human stories. Stories that make you question, well, what you think you know about how the world works.
Okay, let's jump right in. First up, a really modern mystery, one that's basically exploded online, the vanishing of Lars Missing.
Right, Lars. He was 28, German guy from Berlin back in 2014. Seemed totally normal, worked at a power plant, had friends, a girlfriend, loved soccer, close to his family.
Completely ordinary life, which makes what happened next so chilling, how fast his whole world just seemed to unravel.
Exactly. It's that speed, the descent into what really looks like intense paranoia. So, June 2014, he's on holiday, a fun trip with 5 old school friends, Golden Sands Resort, Varna, Bulgaria.
Sounds pretty standard.
Totally. But the last night, things go south. He gets into this argument about soccer, Werder Bremen versus Bayern Munich, apparently with 4 other German guys at a bar.
Okay.
And he leaves the bar without his friends.
Right. And the next morning, that's when the physical evidence shows up.
Yes. He turns up with an injured jaw and a ruptured eardrum. Now, how he got hurt? The stories from his friends didn't match up. Some said the guys from the bar beat him. Others claimed maybe someone hired by them did it. Bit confusing.
So conflicting accounts already. And then the medical advice comes in.
Yeah, a doctor checks him out, prescribes an antibiotic Cefroil, 500 milligrams, and crucially advises him not to fly because of the ear injury.
Okay, so his friends head back to Hamburg.
But Lars urges them to go. He insists he stays behind. And that's precisely when things get really, really weird.
The change in behavior is stark, isn't it?
Absolutely stark. He checks into this cheap hotel near the airport, and the hotel's security cameras. They catch him pacing, looking really anxious, even hiding elevators. He leaves the hotel in the middle of the night, comes back. Just very erratic behavior.
And the calls to his mother? That's deeply unsettling.
Terrifying, really.
Mm-hmm.
He calls her whispering, says someone's trying to rob him, kill him, says he can hear his own heart pounding. Then he texts her, asking about his medication, telling her to cancel his credit cards, repeating that people are after him.
Just pure panic, it sounds like.
Extreme distress, definitely. So after this night of apparent terror, July 8th, 2014, he gets a cab to Varna Airport.
Okay, so he's trying to get home.
Seems like it. CCTV at the airport actually shows him looking relatively calm initially. He even texts his mom saying he arrived safely.
A moment of calm, then.
It seems so. But then he sees an airport physician, just to check his injuries, get clearance to fly. The doctor notes he looks nervous, asks about the medication he took.
And someone overheard something crucial there, didn't they?
Yes. A construction worker nearby reportedly heard Lars tell the doctor, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here."
I have to get out of here. Wow.
And almost immediately after saying that, he just bolts, leaves the doctor's office, abandons everything, his backpack, phone, wallet, passport, everything.
Just drops it all and runs.
Sprints out of the airport terminal, climbs over this tall perimeter fence topped with barbed wire, and runs into a nearby wooded area like a sunflower field.
And that was it.
That was the last confirmed sighting of Lars Mittank. Gone. Into the woods. An absolutely inexplicable break.
It's just baffling. 1 minute texting his mom, the next scaling a fence into the wilderness. The theories obviously are all over the place.
They are. But probably the most compelling one, or at least the one with some medical basis, suggests a possible psychotic episode. Triggered, potentially, by that antibiotic he was given, Cefroil.
It's brofloxacin, right?
That's the generic name, yes. And there are documented cases, though rare, of antibiotics like this causing adverse neuropsychiatric effects. Things like drowsiness, restlessness, hyperactivity, even psychosis.
So it could explain the sudden paranoia, the frantic behavior, the flight response?
It provides a framework, yeah. It doesn't prove anything, but it offers a plausible explanation for such a dramatic and sudden shift in his mental state. It highlights how, I don't know, fragile our balance can be sometimes.
Of course, there are other theories.
Always. Maybe the initial fight escalated somehow. Maybe he got accidentally involved in something dangerous, like organized crime or drugs, though there's no real evidence for that.
Or the idea that he just ran away to start a new life.
People suggest it, but the way he did it, abandoning literally everything, including ID and money, makes that seem less likely. It looks more like panic than a plan.
And the sightings since then?
All unconfirmed. Reports from Germany, Bulgaria. There was that striking case in Brazil in 2016, a guy who looked incredibly similar, found walking along a highway.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
Turned out he was a Canadian aid worker suffering from schizophrenia, not Lars. So the case is still active, still unsolved, just vanished. A real modern enigma.
Okay, from that very recent tech-documented mystery, let's go way back. Back to a case steeped in, well, parental grief and some seriously unsettling questions, the Sauter children.
Ah, yes, the Sauter case. This one takes us to Christmas Eve, 1945, Fayetteville, West Virginia. George and Jenny Sauter, 9 kids, a big family.
Christmas Eve should have been peaceful.
Anything but. It started strangely. Jenny got a wrong number phone call late that evening. Then, a bit later, she heard this loud bang, like something heavy hitting their tin roof.
Odd noises.
And then smoke. The house was on fire. George and Jenny managed to scramble out with 4 of the children.
But not all of them.
No. Tragically, 5 were still inside. Maurice, Martha Lee, Louis, Jenny, and Betty. Ages 15 down to 6. George tried frantically to get back in, but the staircase was engulfed in flames. The house burned down completely. Just ashes left.
Just unimaginable horror for parents. The official ruling came quickly, I believe.
It did. Officials concluded the 5 children died in the fire, probably suffocated, then burned. Death certificates were issued. Case closed, seemed like.
But the parents, George and especially Jenny, they just couldn't accept it.
Not at all. They had serious doubts, grounded in some pretty compelling points. For one, Jenny talked to the local coroner, who apparently told her that a typical house fire doesn't actually get hot enough to completely cremate human bones to ash.
Really? That's crucial.
Yeah. And Jenny, needing to know, even did her own sort of grim experiment. She burned some animal bones in a hot bonfire. They charred, but they didn't turn to dust.
Wow. So if 5 children had died in that fire.
You'd expect to find skeletal remains, significant ones, not just fine ash.
And that wasn't the only thing that felt wrong, was it?
Not by a long shot. Remember the weird phone call? The bang on the roof. Well, after the fire, they discovered the phone line to the house had been cut. Deliberately.
Cut phone lines. Okay, that's suspicious.
And their ladder, the one they always kept propped against the side of the house, specifically for emergencies, like a fire, it was gone from its usual spot. They found it later, thrown down an embankment about 75 feet away.
So, no way to call for help quickly, and no way to easily reach the upstairs windows from the outside. It sounds planned.
It really starts to look less like a tragic accident and more like something orchestrated, doesn't it? Then there's the matter of the actual search of the debris.
What did they find? Or not find?
That's the key. The Sauters themselves sifted through the ashes. They had only a few small bone fragments, which they thought might be vertebrae. They sent them to the Smithsonian for analysis.
And the Smithsonian?
They confirmed the bones were human, consistent with the age of the younger children. But here's the kicker. They said the bones showed no signs of exposure to fire. They were described as clean and bright white, not charred or blackened. And crucially, those were the only human remains found. 4 small vertebrae, nothing else.
Wait, only 4 small bones and unburned. From a fire that supposedly cremated 5 children. That doesn't add up at all.
It absolutely doesn't, which fueled the parents' belief. The fire wasn't the cause of death, it was a cover-up, a distraction for a kidnapping.
Kidnapping? Why?
Yeah.
What was the motive?
Well, George Sauter was an Italian immigrant and apparently quite outspoken in his criticism of Mussolini. This reportedly led to some pretty intense arguments with other members of the local Italian-American community.
Politics getting heated.
Very heated. There was even an incident where an insurance salesman, after being rebuffed by George, supposedly warned him that his house would go up in smoke because of his dirty remarks about Mussolini.
That's incredibly chilling in hindsight.
And there was another angle. George also worked in coal trucking, an industry which, back then, sometimes had connections to organized crime. So the family wondered if the kidnapping was some kind of retribution, either political or business related.
So they truly believed their children were alive, taken somewhere.
Absolutely. They never gave up hope. They put up this huge billboard along Route 16, offering a $10,000 reward, a massive sum back then for any information. It stayed up for decades.
Did the billboard generate any leads?
It did generate some. One tipster claimed they saw 4 of the children looking like the Sauter kids at a motel near Charleston, West Virginia, on Christmas Day, the day after the fire, with 2 men and 2 women who seemed Italian.
Wow. And there was a photograph, too?
Yes. Years later, in the 1960s, Jenny received a photo in the mail. It showed a young man, maybe in his 20s, who bore a striking resemblance to her son, Louis. On the back was a cryptic message. Jenny was convinced it was Louis.
My goodness. So much hope, so much uncertainty. What happened to the family?
George Sauter passed away in 1969, still believing his children were out there somewhere. Jenny kept that billboard maintained until she died in 1989. After her death, the billboard disappeared. Their youngest daughter, Sylvia, the only surviving child who was old enough to remember that night, she continued the search until she passed away just recently, in 2021.
3 generations haunted by this. But it does raise that difficult question. If they were alive, why didn't they ever make contact?
That's the heartbreaking mystery within the mystery, isn't it? Fear,
Yeah.
controlled by their captors. We just don't know. But the Sauter case remains this powerful testament to parental instinct and the disturbing possibility that sometimes the official story just doesn't hold water.
Truly makes you wonder. Okay, from that historical enigma, we move to something, well, different. A case where the disappearance itself is horrific, but the way clues emerged later is downright eerie. Marie Elizabeth Spinecki.
Right. This story starts with a terrible crime. January 31st, 1976. Marie, just 19 years old, was hitchhiking in Red Bluff, California.
A dangerous thing to do even then.
Tragically so. She was picked up by a couple, Cameron Hooker and his wife, Janice. And what happened next was brutal. Cameron tied her up, assaulted her, tortured her for a day.
It's horrific to even think about.
When her screaming wouldn't stop, he tried to silence her permanently by attempting to sever her vocal cords, cutting her throat badly. Then he took her to their basement, hung her, and later, he and Janice buried her body somewhere near Lassen Volcanic National Park.
And her body.
Never found. Cameron Hooker was never actually charged with Marie's murder. The only evidence was Janice's testimony, given much later in relation to another infamous kidnapping case involving Colleen Stan.
So a brutal, unsolved murder. Marie vanished, her resting place unknown. But the story doesn't end there, does it?
Not even close. Fast forward to early 2000. A woman named Jodie Foster, no relation to the actress, and her little 3-year-old daughter, Hannah, moved into apartment 14 in Chico, California.
Apartment 14, okay.
Jodie immediately felt something was off. A kind of darkness, she described it, and this strange, persistent smell she couldn't place.
Just a bad feeling.
It started that way, but it escalated dramatically. Jodie began having these incredibly vivid, horrifying nightmares.
Nightmares about what?
About a couple, looking like they were from the 70s, stalking, kidnapping, torturing, and eventually murdering a young woman in a basement, like a dungeon. The dreams got progressively more violent and detailed.
That's terrifying. And it wasn't just her.
No. Her daughter, Hannah, only 3 years old, started talking about an imaginary friend, an angel she called My Liz.
Why, Liz?
Yeah. Hannah said My Liz would kiss her forehead, described her as having dark hair with a kind of flip hairstyle. And Hannah started drawing pictures. One of them showed a man hanging My Liz.
A 3-year-old drawing that. Chilling.
And then the physical stuff started happening in the apartment, what people often call poltergeist activity, light bulbs exploding, doors slamming shut on their own, clocks changing time inexplicably.
Objects move.
Objects moving. Shoes, salt and pepper shakers found in different places. One time, the receiver of their landline phone moved from the kitchen cradle all the way to Jodie's bedroom. Toys would be found piled up in Hannah's room. And one time, an Ernie doll from Sesame Street was found on top of the pile with a noose tied around its neck.
A noose on an Ernie doll, that's beyond creepy. That's threatening.
It felt that way. One night was particularly intense. The TV suddenly went to static, cupboards started slamming open and shut, a burner on the stove turned itself on high.
Oh my God.
And that Ernie doll, the one with the noose, it didn't have batteries in it.
Yeah.
But it started repeating its catchphrase, I feel great, over and over.
No batteries. Okay, that's impossible.
Jodie was terrified, obviously. She called the building manager. When he came over, his dog started barking like crazy the moment it entered the apartment, seemingly at nothing. Then, right in front of all three of them, Jody, Hannah, and the manager, the cord of a lamp started swinging back and forth like a jump rope all by itself.
Okay, that's enough. Get out.
They did. They all ran out of the apartment, understandably freaked out.
So what's the connection? How did Jody link this haunting to Marie Spanicky?
Well, Jody talked to a neighbor who mentioned that apartment 14 had a reputation for being haunted and that a girl who used to live there had gone missing years ago. Then, about a year later, Jody's nightmares returned.
And the book.
Right. Her boyfriend happened to be reading a true crime book called The Perfect Victim. It was about the kidnapping of Colleen Stan by Cameron and Janice Hooker. And in the book, it mentioned Janice Hooker also confessing to the murder of another young woman 16 months before they kidnapped Colleen. That woman was Marie Spanicky.
And Marie Spanicky lived in.
Jody did some digging. Marie Elizabeth Spanicky had lived in apartment 14, and she disappeared on January 31st, 1976.
January 31st? Wait, that's the exact same date.
The exact date Jody and Hannah moved into that same apartment 24 years later. And Marie's nickname, friends calls her Marie's.
Marie's.
Exactly. The details lined up, the time frame in the dreams, the description of the victim, the violence, Hannah's imaginary friend's name. It all pointed back to Marie.
Unbelievable. Did Jody go to the police with this?
She did. In July 2008, she finally called the Red Bluff Police Department.
Yeah.
And the timing was, again, incredibly strange.
How so?
The detective she spoke to was, in his words, spooked. Because the cold case unit was scheduled to meet that very day to discuss potentially reopening Marie Spanicky's case, something Jody couldn't possibly have known.
The universe sending a message, maybe?
It certainly felt like more than coincidence. Jody shared details from her dreams, specifically mentioning A17 like a road name, and the numbers 35.76 possibly miles.
Did the police follow up on those?
They did. They spoke again with Janice Hooker, who had immunity. Janice provided more details about where they buried Marie. Investigators checked maps near Lassen Volcanic National Park. There is an A17 road in the area Janice indicated.
And the numbers, 35.76.
The location Janice described as the likely burial site. It measured almost exactly 35.75 miles from the Hooker's former home.
Wow, the dream details matched the physical location?
They did. Investigators searched the area based on this combined information.
But Marie's body was never found.
Sadly, no. Despite the uncanny clues from Jody's experiences and Janice's confession, Marie's remains were never recovered. Cameron Hooker, the perpetrator, was eventually paroled in 2021, but placed in a state hospital facility.
So Marie is still missing, physically, but it's like her story refused to stay buried. It came through, somehow. Through dreams, a child's drawings, a haunted apartment.
It's one of the strangest intersections of true crime and, well, the seemingly paranormal I've ever encountered. It really pushes the boundaries of what we think is possible, how trauma might echo, or how information might be transmitted in ways we don't understand.
Truly chilling. Okay, one last case for today. From the spectral, let's turn to the purely perplexing involving big money and high society, the million-dollar disappearance of Ambrose Small.
Ah, Ambrose Small.
Ugh.
A larger-than-life figure. Canadian theater magnate, born way back in 1863. He built up a whole chain of theaters, very successful businessman.
And his disappearance is tied directly to that success, right?
Absolutely. In December 1919, he finalized a massive deal, selling his entire theater chain to TransCanada Theatres Limited.
How massive are we talking?
Over $1 million up front, which back then was astronomical. Today, that's roughly $27 million Canadian, or about 19 million US dollars, plus another $750,000 was due in installments. Yeah. Huge money.
Life-changing money. So what happened after the deal closed?
December 1st, 1919. The day after the deal supposedly finalized, Ambrose deposited that enormous check. Later that day, early evening, around 5:30 p.m., he left his office in Toronto, said he was heading to catch a train.
Okay.
He stopped briefly at a newsstand. Apparently, he got into a bit of a tiff with the seller because the New York Times was late due to a blizzard hitting the region. He yelled, then walked off into the snow.
And that was the last time?
That was the last confirmed sighting of 56-year-old Ambrose Small. He essentially vanished into a blizzard, supposedly with the equivalent of millions in his pocket, though the actual check was deposited.
Vanished. But the investigation didn't start right away.
No, and this is one of the odd parts. His wife, Teresa, didn't report him missing for 2 whole weeks.
2 weeks? Why the delay?
Her explanation was delicate. She claimed Ambrose was a known womanizer, frequently went off on days-long benders with young actresses from his shows, and she basically didn't want the public scandal of reporting him missing if he was just off on another liaison.
Plausible, maybe, but 2 weeks is a long time. Did his actions suggest he planned to leave?
Not really. He hadn't packed a bag. He didn't take any significant amount of cash from his personal accounts beyond walking around money. And crucially, he never withdrew any funds from the bank account where he deposited that massive check. He just sat there.
Doesn't sound like someone skipping town with the loot, so suspicion falls elsewhere.
Naturally. Foul play seemed likely. The prime suspect early on was Ambrose's own secretary, a man named James Doughty.
The secretary. Motive?
Money and resentment, apparently. Doughty often complained about being underpaid and felt humiliated by Small. Some friends even claimed Doughty had talked, perhaps loosely, about kidnapping or even killing Ambrose.
Talk is one thing, but
Doughty's actions were suspicious. Just hours after Ambrose was last seen, Doughty also disappeared. And he didn't leave empty-handed. He took about $100,000 worth of negotiable bonds from Ambrose's safety deposit box.
okay, that looks bad. Did they catch him?
They did, eventually.
Yeah.
Tracked him down in Oregon. He was initially charged with kidnapping Ambrose, but those charges were dropped due to lack of evidence linking him directly to the disappearance. He was convicted for stealing the bonds, though.
So a thief, but maybe not a murderer or kidnapper. What about the wife, Teresa?
She's the other main theory. Motive is pretty clear. Ambrose disappears literally the day after securing a fortune, and she stands to inherit it all. Plus, she knew about his affairs. Plenty of reason to want him gone.
But there's a counter-argument there, right?
There is. If Teresa had arranged for Ambrose to be killed, wouldn't she want the body found? Finding the body would have proven his death, simplifying the whole inheritance process, life insurance claims, everything. Instead, because he was just missing, Ambrose wasn't declared legally dead for 4 years. It actually complicated things for her financially.
Right, that doesn't quite fit the profile of a clean getaway murder plot. So the man vanishes, the money sits, suspects have issues with their theories, but the story takes another turn, doesn't it? Into the supernatural.
It really does. Ambrose Small, it seems, may not have entirely left the building, or at least not his favorite building. The Grand Theatre in London, Ontario, about 120 miles from Toronto, a theater he personally built in 1901, is widely considered to be haunted by Ambrose himself.
His ghost haunts his favorite theater.
That's the legend, and it's persistent. Now, one early claim, a security guard saying he saw Ambrose at the Grand the very night he vanished in Toronto, seems pretty improbable, given the distance and the blizzard.
Yeah, that stretches belief.
But other accounts pile up over the years. 1927, an actress sees his ghost on stage during a performance. 1956, another actress sees a translucent figure in distinct 1920s clothing. 1960, a seat in the fourth row, supposedly Ambrose's favorite, was seen lowering and rising all by itself during a show.
Just random sightings or more?
More specific things, too. Staff report seeing shadowy figures pacing in the balcony area where Ambrose used to have his private office. Performers hear distinct knocks on their dressing room doors when nobody's there.
Okay, classic haunting stuff. But it gets weirder.
Oh, yeah. During renovations in the 1970s, some really strange things happened. A bulldozer operator was working near the stage, and the machine just suddenly died right as it was about to hit the foundation of an old archway saving the arch. A wall collapsed unexpectedly, revealing a hidden staircase leading, well, nobody knows where.
A secret staircase? Seriously?
Seriously. Lighting technicians reported seeing a man vanish before their eyes. Desk drawers in the offices would allegedly slide open on their own. A film crew working there had constant problems with light bulbs burning out, only for them to work perfectly fine later. Actors rehearsing have had sand inexplicably fall on them from the rafters above the stage.
Yeah, where would sand come from? Bizarre.
And then there are the more personal sensory experiences. Women in particular have reported feeling whispers right near their ear, feeling like someone touched them inappropriately when alone, having their clothes tugged, or just feeling a very strong, distinct presence on stage with them.
That's unnerving. Has anyone tried to investigate this formally?
Yes, paranormal investigation groups have been there. Just recently, September 2024, the Ontario Paranormal Society did an investigation. The founder reported feeling physically pushed while on the balcony and claimed to have recorded an EVP electronic voice phenomena, a ghostly voice saying the name Louise.
Louise, any significance?
Unknown. Could be anything. But the sheer volume and consistency of reports over decades, from performers, staff, investigators, even people who claim to be skeptics, it leads many to believe the Grand Theatre is genuinely haunted by Ambrose Small.
So the man disappears after $1 million deal, maybe murdered, maybe ran away, but his spirit decides to stick around his beloved theater.
It's a fascinating postscript, isn't it? Whether driven off by greed, betrayal, or his own choice, Ambrose the man vanished. But Ambrose the ghost, perhaps, couldn't bear to leave the spotlight entirely. His case is this strange mix of high-finance mystery and lingering spectral presence, what truly defines an ending, you know?
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot today. Lars Mittank's desperate sprint from an airport into nowhere, the Sauter children's Christmas Eve disappearance, and their parents' lifelong, heartbreaking search.
Marie Elizabeth Spanecki, her body lost, but her story echoing through dreams and unsettling events decades later. And Ambrose Small, the theater magnate who vanished with a fortune, only to perhaps reappear as a ghost.
Each one is just profoundly baffling in its own way. They really challenge how we think about why people disappear, the limits of proof, even the fabric of reality sometimes.
They absolutely do. They force us to sit with the unknown, don't they? To
Wow.
accept that sometimes there just aren't neat answers. What part of these stories really sticks with you? Is it the suddenness, the weird coincidences, the theories that pull you in different directions, or just that raw hope you see from the families left behind?
It's probably a mix of all of that. The hope is incredibly powerful, but the sheer abruptness of someone just being gone is what haunts me. And it makes you think. Here's a final thought for you.
Okay.
In today's world, with CCTV everywhere, GPS tracking, digital footprints for everything, could someone really vanish without a trace like Lars or Ambrose did? Or are these kinds of deep, completely unsolved disappearances becoming a thing of the past? Are we just too connected, too monitored now?
That is a really interesting question. You'd think it would be much harder now, wouldn't you, all those digital breadcrumbs we leave? But human ingenuity or desperation finds ways. And accidents still happen in remote places. Data can be corrupted or missed.
So maybe the way someone vanishes might change, but the possibility itself, it's still there.
Perhaps. The impulse, the reasons planned or accidental might still exist. The methods might just have to be different, more sophisticated maybe. Or maybe it just highlights the blind spots that still exist, even in our hyper-documented world. Something to definitely mull over.
Absolutely. Well, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, maybe made you look again at those mysteries that linger out there. They remind us there's still so much we just don't know.
Thanks for listening to PodTrendCast. Stay curious. Stay questioning.